Tantor Audio, a division of Recorded Books, presents The Art of Aliveness, a Creative Return to What Matters Most, by Flora Bowley, foreword by Sark, narrated by Ladji. Foreword. In March 2016, my fiancé John died in my arms. It was one of the most horrifying and gorgeous experiences of my life. I didn't truly recognize the gorgeousness until some years later, when I realized that in the moment of his physical departure, and in all the time since, I felt and feel such incredible love as a result of having known and loved him. I am still learning so much about creating love and letting love be created through me. John's love for me opened my heart completely and allowed a new love partner to find me. Perhaps you have also experienced horrifying loss or grief in your life. Most of us know this kind of horror in some form. Maybe an experience like this has never felt gorgeous to you. In my experience, horrifying and gorgeous go together. That's how it works for me. That's my way of being present and alchemizing the wonderful and terrible things, from the light to dark and all the places in between. I believe that when we can welcome life and all it offers us, we can choose to meet it with our full selves and hearts, and invite a transformation to take place inside of us. This is the best way I know to be the most alive, most full, and most love-activated human being I can be. There's a kind of art to living in this way, and death, as it turns out, is also an experience of aliveness. Flora Bowley calls this the art of aliveness. This book is a kind of treasure map. The treasure itself is a beautiful, precious mystery. Aliveness itself. Painting, writing, living, loving. There's an art to all of it, and it all takes considerable practice. You have to keep doing it, again and again, experimenting to find out what works and what doesn't, and then keep going. This book is full of ways to practice the art of aliveness, ways to feel your own aliveness with your own inner treasure map. And just as in any good treasure hunt, there will be obstacles. There's the gigantic sea monster representing your inner critics, spewing out frothy proclamations of fear and regret. There's a siren song that numbs your senses and puts you to sleep while your little lifeboat drifts off course. And there are the very rocky shores of low self-esteem and overwhelm, and the thick undergrowths of conformity and anxiety. But in the midst of all of this, you have a magnificent superpower. It's called creativity. This is the fuel for your exploration of aliveness, and for all the times you don't feel like exploring at all. Creativity and its partner imagination flow brightly through this book. This book is full of inspiration to bring your own kind of magic to each moment, to inspire your own curiosity and desire for play, and make more alive choices. The obstacles won't go away, and that's okay. After all, surviving obstacles brings you an awareness and strength you wouldn't know otherwise. In your practice of aliveness, you begin to notice the voices of your inner critics when they arise sooner, and you learn to meet them with love and patience. You accept and learn to understand the ebbs and flows of your energies, and allow the beauty and the pain that live side by side in each moment. Throughout it all, each of us has this creative superpower, and every one of us has the magnificent opportunity to be an artist of life. In my own life, I use and have used the power of creativity to transform the obstacles in my life. I'm a survivor of childhood incest, I've lived in poverty, and I've suffered with anxiety and addictions. I've blocked my own creative gifts and hidden from sharing them for many years. None of these past experiences describe or define my current life, and the catalyst for the transformations I have experienced has always been a willingness to go within, embrace all that I find, and respond creatively with my full heart. I live and practice my aliveness in the marvelous, messy middle, with all the successes and challenges and everything in between. I believe that experimenting in these ways has allowed me to transform almost any situation or feeling, no matter what changes or losses have occurred. And I'm always practicing. We live in terrifying and magical times, and we can sometimes feel depleted, assaulted, or underwater. Yet we yearn for connection, for magic, for imagination in action. How can we even begin to feel truly alive in times like these? Is it possible? What's missing from our lives? What have we forgotten? I believe that we must reignite the power of our creative spark. What sparks you is what wakes you. What wakes you is what replenishes your energy. And this process is what brings you alive. I met Flora in person the same year that John died. I had admired her work for years and had contacted her to see whether we might want to create something together. In our first meeting, she told me that 25 years earlier, my work as an artist and author had inspired her to step more confidently onto her own creative path. As I read her luscious book today and create this foreword for it, I am so glad to say that the inspiration has come full circle. We creatively spark each other. What about you? What creatively sparks you? What dreams and desires have you hidden away from view? What tugs at your soul, aching to be expressed in the world? What haven't you yet asked for? Once you discover and connect with your own creative spark, you can use it to transform your life. Your curiosity will lead to new discoveries to share with the world, whether through art or words you create, or just in the simple you-ness of you living life. It's time. It already happened that you connected with this book. Now all you need to do is accept the invitation in this book to discover your own aliveness and put it into practice. This is the way forward in a world that sometimes feels broken. According to mystic and theologian Howard Thurman, don't ask what the world needs, he says. Ask what makes you come alive, and go do it, because what the world needs is people who have come alive. This book and treasuring map will support and inspire you to come alive in new ways and let the world experience those great gifts in your soul. Love, Sark. Susan Ariel Rainbow Kennedy. Introduction. It is a serious thing just to be alive on this fresh morning in the broken world. Mary Oliver. When my first painting professor walked into the room and said, "Well, we all have 1,000 bad paintings in us, so let's get going," I caught my breath. That was a lot of bad paintings. As a 19-year-old art student sitting in my first college art class, I loved how this place made me feel. The rich smell of turpentine, the worn wooden easels, the "it's okay to make a mess" paint-splattered everything. It all made me feel alive, like anything was possible. Looking back, I realized those daunting and discouraging words struck a lasting chord. I would spend the next 2 decades of my life painting at least 1,000 good and bad paintings, and in the process I would come to understand that the simple act of applying paint to canvas had become my life's greatest teacher. Fast forward over 25 years, and I can say with heartfelt certainty and deep gratitude that the creative process has informed and seeped into every aspect of how I live my life. Like a dear friend, painting has guided me through the deepest valleys of loss and lifted me to the highest peaks of joy and release. It has gently taken my hands and shown me why letting go creates space for more magic, and how change is not only necessary, but life-giving. Painting has given me a safe space to get lost and find myself again inside the great unknown, and it has reminded me time and time again that following my heart will always lead me home. Ultimately, what I've learned from painting is that art making is a practice, and the practice of making art is also a practice in living. I've always thought of artists as change makers and paradigm shifters. Hungry for inspiration, they dip below the visible surface of the everyday, alchemize what they experience there, and create innovative portals into new ways of doing and being. Having the opportunity to be an artist in this lifetime and to view the world through the lens of a maker has always felt like a profound honor and privilege. What I've come to understand through my own experience is that the very same tools and principles that artists cultivate can also be applied to life. Whether we're creating a painting or creating a life, our willingness to step into mystery, cultivate connection to what matters most, and let go of what is no longer serving us will always move our story forward. I imagine I will always love pushing colors around a canvas, but over the years, the dynamic parallels I've discovered between art and life have become even more fascinating to me than the act of painting alone ever was. This lifelong exploration is what this book is all about. It is my deepest hope that the intimate perspectives I've gained through decades of dancing with my own creative muse may serve to spark a beautiful reunion between you and your own aliveness. No paints required. The Art of Aliveness is about the potent place where the lessons we glean through creative practices offer meaning, direction, and depth to our everyday life experiences. In return, the lessons we learn in life also inform our creative work. In the end, creativity becomes a way of life, and a creative current infuses life so thoroughly that there's really no distinction between the two. When I talk about aliveness in this context, it goes well beyond sleeping, eating, breathing, and going through the motions of responsibilities. Aliveness means reaching into the vast depths of our full human experience, not shying away from what we find there, and being brave enough to say, I can be with what is, and I can choose again. I can create beauty out of sorrow and find meaning in the madness. I can be the alchemist of my own life, no matter what cards I've been dealt. My own pursuit of aliveness has led me to ask the following questions, which are at the core of this book. How can my life become a thoughtful and poignant work of art? How can my works of art be fueled by my soul's deepest longings for truth and beauty? How can my life and my creative offerings become seamlessly connected to one another? Through curiosity, practice, and patience, I have learned that when I take my time and honestly work both ends of this spectrum, the lines between life and art begin to blur. In the overlap between the two, the simple, profound, and complex experience of being fully alive resides. To be clear, the Art of Aliveness is not about being our best self, but rather becoming a more honest, inquisitive, and ever-evolving version of ourself. A work in progress, and a stunning masterpiece all at the same time. Not a day goes by that I don't reflect in some way on how painting teaches me how to live, and how living teaches me how to paint. The thousands of hours I've spent at my own easel, along with the many years I've spent supporting others on their creative paths, reinforce just how powerful and transformational the creative process can be. In each chapter of this book, I share the most compelling and useful teachings I've gained through my years as a professional painter, workshop facilitator, and creative catalyst. You'll find my own life experiences woven throughout, which have taught me about change, courage, adaptability, and truth-telling, along with gems of wisdom from students, mentors, and friends. I hope the stories and philosophies I share here serve as keys to the doors you're ready to open. When you walk through these doors, I hope freedom, connection, and a genuine feeling of aliveness await you on the other side. This is what you deserve, and this is what I want for you. To support you on this journey, I've included some sections called Try This On. In my painting retreats, I often encourage folks to try on whatever colors, images, or brave moves feel intriguing to them in any given moment, while remembering they can always change their minds. I believe this idea of trying something on without an attachment to the outcome ignites action, curiosity, and levity without the pressure of perfection. With that in mind, I wholeheartedly encourage you to try on the action steps for each lesson if you choose. Nothing is required, of course, but if you want to experience the art of aliveness from the inside out, these invitations will support you in doing just that. I also suggest having a writing journal to accompany you on this exploration. I will offer questions and prompts to consider throughout the book, and giving yourself the space to write, sketch, and brainstorm on paper will serve to deepen and clarify your reflections. We live in a rapidly changing world with many challenges, and we are all responding to the call to inhabit this earth, our communities, and our personal lives in new and inventive ways. The learning curve is steep, and many of us feel intense pressure to help find new solutions to the myriad social, political, health, and environmental problems we face. Old structures are falling apart, giving way to fresh opportunities and new ways of being. A great rearranging is underway. Now more than ever, applying the philosophies of the creative process to our lives and to our world is not only helpful, it's vital. I believe each and every one of us exists here for a profound purpose at this exact time. Each of us has something to contribute to the collective healing that we so desperately need. If you're listening to this book right now, I believe you're ready to move through whatever fears are holding you back from experiencing your soul's deepest desires and offerings. I also believe that by connecting more intimately with what sparks your imagination and ignites your unique sense of purpose, you are taking foundational steps toward more equity, peace, and justice for all beings. We are in this together. Let's lift each other up and remember what it feels like to be truly alive. I believe our collective timing is perfect, and it is my sincere desire that this book supports you on your brave journey home to what matters most. This is the Art of Aliveness. 1. Start by remembering. You've always had the power. Glinda the Good Witch, The Wizard of Oz. I practiced for weeks, gearing up for my first attempt at singing a solo in my 7th grade choir. Even so, it took everything I had just to walk up to the front of the room and stand next to the piano. With shaky hands and sweat dripping down my sides, it's no surprise that my voice completely seized the moment I began to sing. After hearing a few squeaky off-key notes and the snickering of my choir mates, everything that happened next is a blur, which is probably for the best. I decided in that moment that I would never sing again. Sadly, that was the end of singing for me for the next 28 years. Even singing Happy Birthday at parties caused my throat to tighten and my palms to sweat. What if people heard how terrible I was? I should probably just pretend to sing and save myself and everyone else the pain of having to hear my actual voice. So that's what I did. I stuffed it down. I avoided it at all costs. I lip-synced. I moved to the back of the room. Eventually, I forgot that once upon a time, I loved to sing. Then, on my 40th birthday, I was traveling in Spain, and my dear friend Leslie Helpert, who is an incredible singer and teacher, offered to give me a free voice lesson. My mind raced with excuses as to why this was a bad idea for everyone involved. Those feelings of shame and embarrassment from 7th grade were still hardwired into my nervous system. But somewhere deep down, there was a part of me that was ready to sing again. A part of me that remembered that all humans are meant to express themselves in this way, that singing is a healing part of being alive. It was also not lost on me that I had dedicated the entire previous decade of my life to helping other people move through creative blocks and fears. Who was I to not sing just because I felt a bit terrified? What was I afraid of? What would I miss out on if I stayed in my fear? Knowing that the best things happen when we move out of our comfort zone, I showed up at Leslie's cute 6th-floor apartment in the heart of Barcelona, nerves and all. I apologized in advance for my terrible voice and rambled on about why I wasn't a singer and how I was just trying to be gracious and receive this generous gift. Meanwhile, my inner child was dancing on the rooftops. She was getting to sing again after all these years. What happened next took me by surprise. Leslie gently guided me through all kinds of unique and creative ways to help me open up my voice through body and breath awareness, and I actually thought I sounded okay in moments. Most importantly, it did not feel like 7th grade choir at all. I ended up taking voice lessons with Leslie for the next 2 years. And while I'm still not one to break out into a solo around a campfire, I now sing because I love how it makes me feel, regardless of how it sounds. Singing makes me feel alive. As a painting teacher, I often hear people say things like, "I'm not an artist. I can't even draw a stick figure. I didn't get those genes." Or folks who do feel creatively inclined will diminish those feelings, saying things like, "Well, I'm not very good at art. I just like to dabble. It's nothing really." I hear these self-fulfilling stories over and over again in my line of work, and I carry my own versions of them as well. Perhaps you too have heard yourself declaring what you are or are not capable of doing. Wherever you land on creativity spectrum, I believe it's worthwhile to take an honest look at where those stories came from, how they might be spilling over into other parts of your life, and what they are keeping you from experiencing. So often these beliefs are based in old narratives, trauma, or conditions, and they simply aren't true. If we don't take time to clear out the cobwebs, they can be pesky and powerful blocks to creativity and aliveness. Let me start by saying that I understand why creativity can be so hard to embrace. There is an enormous amount of vulnerability that goes along with creating something out of nothing. And beyond those precious early years when crayons are abundant and art rules don't exist, most of us don't live in a culture that encourages us to explore a creative path. In fact, the opposite seems to be true. Even though I grew up surrounded by my dad's paintings, an aunt who owned an art gallery, and plenty of support to explore my own creativity, I certainly thought only a few artists with a capital A could be real artists. Besides these elusive and celebrated few, who were mostly men, most creatives didn't seem to be taken very seriously. I can't tell you how many skeptical looks and raised eyebrows I've received for simply stating I'm an artist. More often than not, I'm met with a dismissive or disbelieving response, which speaks volumes to the lack of respect many creatives face. Factor in the widely accepted perceptions of the starving and/or self-destructive artist, and it makes perfect sense that most people feel a need to disassociate themselves from their creative spirits. Why would anyone choose the lawless and unpredictable path of being a creative when so many other well-traveled options exist? Seems pretty risky. Unfortunately, the old-school beliefs about who gets to be a capital A artist, the magical chosen few, and who doesn't, everyone else, allows us to forget that creativity and being alive go hand in hand, like a brilliant birthright given to each of us with our very first breath. And while choosing to be a professional artist is one very specific and dedicated creative journey, there's a vibrant world of opportunities to engage with creativity that live just off that beaten path. Art making and creative thinking serve as powerful vehicles to access more of our own humanity and create a life we truly love. The good news is that this kind of exploration is available to anyone who is courageous and curious enough to take the first step. Exploring this exhilarating terrain is what the Art of Aliveness is all about. The full spectrum of creativity. To remember why creativity is so essential, take a moment to imagine life without it. We would miss out on so much of what makes being alive exquisite. Music, poetry, dance, literature, theater, new inventions, and so much more are inextricably linked to human creativity. However, there are also more integrated and subtle ways that creativity shows up and elevates our day-to-day experiences. Things you might do naturally without considering them to be creative acts at all. Let's take a moment to broaden the definition of what creativity means by considering how simple acts of observation, curiosity, and innovation hold the power to bring more life to otherwise mundane moments. Imagine walking down the street and reveling in the way light and shadows dance across the sidewalk, or the way an orange leaf pops against the blue sky. What about composing a handwritten letter to someone you love? Or how about arranging the items in your home to reflect more of your personal style? Can you imagine a morning practice that includes a few minutes of an evocative writing prompt, or experimenting with the way watercolors swirl and merge together on a piece of paper? Can you remember the last time you moved your body to one of your favorite songs simply for the joy it brings? How have you used creative problem solving to come up with new solutions in your personal relationships? Creative adventures can be as messy or involved as you choose, but they don't need to be fancy, groundbreaking, or even take a lot of time to be valid and effective. In fact, simple acts of creative expression and innovation woven into daily life have an incredible way of soothing, stirring, and reminding us what it feels like to be alive. In turn, flexing our creative muscles fortifies our ability to be more tuned in, observant, and adaptable in all parts of our life. In this way, fortifying any strand of our creative web strengthens the whole. The principles and philosophies that drive the creative process also have the power to infuse life with the same richness that the actual act of creating so poignantly reveals. In other words, creativity goes well beyond making stuff. It's a mindset, a way of being that is the opposite of productivity for productivity's sake. Creativity synthesizes our life experiences and inspires us to dream things into being. In this way, your unique expression, whether through song, dance, paint, verse, activism, gardening, fabric, food, or love, serves as a contribution and gift to the world around you. Take a moment to reflect on the many ways you already infuse your daily life with creativity. Are you the kind of person who delights in seeing bird silhouettes against a stormy sky? Do you find great satisfaction in adding a little pop of color to your outfit? Do you seek out new and interesting ways to prepare food, and perhaps learn a bit about a new culture along the way? Do you love stringing words together, even if they are just notes in your journal? Do you come up with weird and wonderful games to play at parties? Do you enjoy visualizing new ways the world might become a more equitable place for all beings? What other ways do you weave creativity into your everyday experiences, perhaps without even trying? You're just being you, noticing, engaging, and creating as you move through life. And that is the art of aliveness in its purest form. Of course, many of us have what I call creative wounds. Like my experience in 7th grade choir, there are times when courageous creative endeavors do not go as planned. We might experience shame or be discouraged from pursuing that avenue of creativity any further. These tender experiences can lead us to stifle our impulses in certain areas or even abandon creative pursuits altogether. I'm here to say that we all have the power to rewrite those stories, beginning right now. If you're listening to this and feeling disconnected from your creative spirit in some way, I believe you've already begun the journey back to it. The way I see it, being fully honest about what is absent in our lives is actually one of the most profound ways to become reunited with what makes us whole again. When we begin to engage in creative practices, we start to move the energy of life that is within us. When this energy is sparked, we can't help becoming more open, present, and connected to possibilities that exist beyond the obvious options laid out before us. Suddenly, we are in charge again. From this place of empowerment, we're reminded that we have options. We are calling the shots, and we don't have to stay stuck with how things currently are. This is creativity in motion. You don't need to create something that feels beautiful or useful. You don't even need to create a thing at all. Over time, the practice of creating teaches us to value ourselves for showing up and believing that our contribution is worthy, and that this feeling of aliveness is worth the risk. This is how we learn to trust ourselves.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?